superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.
Sasso insecticide spray and coil.
Hello, good evening, welcome. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live from Ofori-Atta, Desawekanda, also live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, DSTV channel 279. We're all across the world on 3news.com. I am Alfred Ocansey. Tonight, former Finance Minister Kenneth Danaya Ofori-Atta may be facing more than just interest from the Office of the Special Prosecutor, as it is emerging that two other state institutions are reportedly seeking him in connection with the separate investigations into some dealings while he was finance minister. We've got details for you. Lawyers for the embattled former National Signals Bureau Director General Kwabena Edubuahin say they remain unfazed by the volume of documents submitted by the Attorney General ahead of the trial. 85 of them, the last time we checked in court. We bring you an update on how the case is unfolding. Stay with us. Also, Ghana continues to record new MPOX cases almost every day over the last at least 3 weeks. Now, raising serious public health concerns, we'll take a closer look at how we can all help and also stay alert, sharp to stop the spread. As always, you're an integral part of the conversation. Let's hear from you. The hashtag we're using is Ghana Tonight on Facebook and on X. Let's get talking. Well, let's settle for Ghana Briefs.
Speaker of Parliament has strongly criticized the conduct of some MPs who disrupted proceedings and defied the directive of the first Deputy Speaker for the MP for Ofori-Atta to vacate the chamber, although the Speaker has decided against referring what he described as a disrespectful act to the Privileges Committee. He issued a stern admonition urging members to respect the authority of the Speaker.
I will just say this, that Shakespeare taught all of us that even a dog is obeyed in office. When we sit here, we are not saints, we are not infallible, but there is good reason why we are called right honorable, and you are called only honorable. I want honorable members to take this in good faith. I know in the light of these events and in defense of the institutional integrity of Parliament, I refer to the conduct of the honorable member.
Meanwhile, leadership of the minority and majority leaders in Parliament have added their collective voices to the call of the Speaker of Parliament for members to uphold the sanctity of the House. Both leaders called on members to be tolerant and adhere to the rules.
We've already assured you at conclave that you will have our cooperation in ensuring that there is order to guide our proceedings and to help uphold the integrity of this House.
We should all take our time to study the rules. My brother Honorable Muntaka is here. My brother Eric Opoku is here. Haruna just left. Even after 20 years in this chamber, every single morning or afternoon I enter the chamber, I still take the rules to check before I make any move.
President John Dramani Mahama has directed the restoration of parent-teacher associations in the administration of schools, especially at the secondary level. The PTAs have, in recent past, been excluded from the administration of schools, leading to protests from parents. The president says the reform proposals in the education sector will be fully implemented.
The trend everywhere in the world is to give communities a say in how their schools are run. And that's why I felt very scandalized when PTAs were virtually shoved aside and not allowed to be a part of the running of our schools, especially at the secondary level. And so I believe that PTA participation must be fully restored, so that they work with teachers and the administration of the schools to make sure that the schools are run properly.
The 24-hour Economy Secretariat has kick-started processes to establish 6 textile and garments parks in 6 regions across the country. The initiative, which seeks to revive collapsed textile factories, is also expected to significantly reduce the importation of foreign garments into Ghana.
The opportunity for a unified African market makes Ghana an important gateway for the manufacture of both garments and also fabric. And once we're plugged into that ecosystem, then Africa is our market, and of 1.4 billion people. Already we're starting off with ECOWAS, which is 425 million people. So strategically, Ghana is well located. Ghana stands a great opportunity to be a recipient.
The Bank of Ghana says more small businesses in the country can now get loans without needing to own land or buildings through its improved collateral registry. Speaking at an event to mark 15 years since the registry was set up, the first Deputy Governor, Dr. Zachary Mumuni, said the system has helped banks and lenders know who owns what, making it easier and safer to give out loans.
The collateral has expanded the frontier of financial inclusion. Micro, small, medium-sized enterprises who often lack traditional forms of collateral can now use movable access like stock, receivables, and tools of trade to secure credit.
As more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live on 3FM 92.7, also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, DSTV channel 279. We're all across the world on 3news.com. And as always, proudly brought to you by Flamingo Paint, Simply Superior, and Sasso Insecticide Spray and Coil, Kumtumtum Preko. Coming up next here on Ghana Tonight, lawyers for embattled former National Signals Bureau Director General, that's been talking about the man Kwabena Edubwaheng, saying that they remain unfazed by the volumes of documents submitted by the Attorney General ahead of the trial. Now, we're going to bring you an update on this and what happened in court earlier today, because the lawyer for the former National Signals Bureau Director, his wife and 2 others, Samuel Atachia, has noted that he is unperturbed, really, by the voluminous nature of disclosures filed by the Attorney General in the criminal case against his clients. Earlier, Deputy Attorney General Dr. Justice Shemsai submitted 85 documentary evidence to support charges against the accused persons. And we're getting information that there could be more in the coming days. 85 is just the initial that we do know. But let's get a bit more into it right now. We're going to hear from Samuel Atachia shortly. He spoke to journalists after the court hearing today. Dennis Poberi Wadam Esquire is with me in the studio. Let's go to our view, as always.
Alfred, pleasure to be here.
Before we set the ball rolling into what we do know as some of the details of these 85 documents that the Attorney General has filed in this case, let's hear from Samuel Atachia, who spoke to journalists after the court hearing earlier today. Take a look.
It's not how much you file, but the quality of what you file. And whether what you file will incriminate the accused person, that's what is critical. You can file to all manner of documents. And whether they are incriminatory in nature, it's what the court will have to assess.
So Dennis, that's the position of someone like Tatiana. It's not so much about how much you file, it's about the quality of your document, the evidence that you produce.
Precisely so. This is evidence we're talking about. When it comes to evidence, it's quality over quantity. But of course, the mention of 85 documents is not quite surprising if you follow the terrain that you have been on this particular show, especially trying to indicate what we've been picking as those who are going to be the witnesses and the kind of things they are going to testify about. And because this is more of a financial transaction as well, you would expect that quite a number of the transactions will be backed by some documentary evidence of some sort. And even when we looked at the areas of the testimony of the witnesses or the witness statements that have been filed so far, or the witnesses who will be coming, some of them will also be tendering in some documents in respect of that. And to also think that there are 4 accused persons, when you put all the documents together, I think the 84 should even be small.
It's smaller.
Yes, because when you look at some of the things, even before you even go, the caution statements and the charge sheets alone of the 4 people alone constitutes a lot. So just do like 2 by 4, already we are talking about 8. Absolutely. Now, when you look at the lead investigator, who is basically testifying in respect of all the transactions that happened at the offices of the former, the office of the former director for the National Signals Bureau, and even the contract that they had with that company, which is now become a matter of this dispute. Also, how there were instructions given to some persons to transfer monies and all that. And some of these people say that they have documents to those effects. Even the driver who is coming in to testify says that he has some receipts to show and all that. I mean, there's quite a lot to look at. So I am not surprised that they're talking about 85 documents in respect of evidence before the court. But just to let you know, like it's been indicated, there could be more than this. This is just the beginning. But the good news is that as part of the documents that have been filed before the court, this is the part we call a disclosure. That's to say, let prosecution give the defense what they are going to use to prosecute their case. This should not only be what they should use to make their case. If there are other documents that will help the defense to also show that they are not guilty, prosecution is under obligation to make those documents available. In other words, it is the duty of the prosecution to help, if evidence exists, the defense to prove its innocence. And I'm using proof innocence loosely because in criminal matters, it is prosecution that proves its case. For defense, they only raise doubts when it comes to that. I mean, so in essence, 85 documents, it's a good beginning.
The jurisprudence for criminal disclosures, we are growing into it, because as you're saying it this way, somebody is watching and saying, why should I be?
Let's not do jurisprudence tonight.
Relax. We know what we're talking about.
Yes, so like I was just mentioning, just so we refresh ourselves, you have the former director of finance. I mean, this is somebody who has been at the National Signals Bureau, worked within that security setup for 18 years. This is somebody who is coming to testify in this particular matter. And then the areas of testimony we understand will be the financial operations of that National Signals Bureau between 2017 and 2020 and even beyond. We are looking at bank accounts, we are looking at who signatories are, we are looking at sources of funding, deposits and transfers. So all of those things need to be justified by way of documentary evidence or documents. They're also talking about transfers and deposits into bank accounts. Some of them we believed at the time she was depositing, she believed there were accounts belonging to the Bureau. Then also matters that relate to some facilitations that were made by the third accused person, who is Mildred Donko, former banker with the UMB Bank. All those matters also come in respect of her testimony.
Right.
Now with the driver, who described himself as the errand assistant and also, errand assistant to the accused persons, he also says that, okay, he'll be testifying in matters that have to do with some withdrawals of monies and deposits of monies at UMB and Stanbic Bank, at some instances giving the money to the first accused person, who is Kobina Edubuahin, and other instances giving it to Mildred Donko. All of those things form part of the documents that we are talking about, including sealed checks that were given. He says that he will give some receipts anytime some monies were deposited or withdrawn from the account. Then comes the lead investigator himself, the staff officer at the IOCO, who literally is the man who has been looking into this matter right from the word go and still providing. He will testify in respect of all the money that is involved. the 49.1 million Ghana cedis, which is said to have been diverted into 3 separate accounts, including the contracts, how much was paid, what were the terms of the contract, and all that will be contained in as part of the documents that will be needed for this particular matter. So, Alfred, it's quite a lot, but the case is just taking shape, and the next agenda date will be for case management to continue. That is to say, let's sort out the documents that are with prosecution. Make sure everybody has, defense should have it, the court should have it, and then also for defense to also file their witness statements. So gradually the case is shaping up. Before long, prosecution will begin putting its witnesses in the box, and then cross-examination will begin. And that's where you test the mettle of the testimonies that are going to come in as to whether they are credible or not, as to whether they'll help prosecution make their case or not. That is a matter to be determined in the coming days.
And you see this going the long haul. We're not seeing the end of this matter anytime soon, are we?
Not at all. But there was also another issue that came up, and that is in respect of some asset declaration matters.
Absolutely. We're reading today that in court, one of the developments is that the prosecution has asked the court for permission to supplement these documents with additional disclosures on the letter requesting information on the Dubois asset declaration.
Yes.
So if it turns out that he hasn't declared his assets, or he did not declare his assets when he was Director General of National Signals Bureau, then what next?
So ordinarily, when it comes to matters of declaration of assets, that is a matter that is usually dealt by SIRAJ. That's the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice. However, when you look at the charges that have been preferred against these persons, you can understand where prosecution is coming from. Because part of the charges have to do with money laundering. That's basically saying that there is some money which is proceeds of crime that have been used for something else.
Yeah.
And you also recall that as part of the facts that the prosecution has presented, they listed quite a number of properties which they say were acquired with proceeds of crime. So now if prosecution is asking that they want to get the asset declaration otherwise of the former National Signals Bureau, they're only trying to reconcile that indeed at the time that he was in office, were these properties his or not? Because that would be a point to... But the essence of it is that it will only help prosecution's case if they're able to get that done. However, if they want to treat it as a non-compliance with the constitutional provision of declaration of assets, this is where it takes us to. So when you look at Article 287, talks about complaints of contravention, and that contravention talks about failure to declare your assets. And one says that an allegation that a public officer has contravened or has not complied with the provision of this chapter shall be made to the Commissioner for Human Rights and Administrative Justice, and in the case of the Commissioner of Human Rights and Administrative Justice, to the Chief Justice, who shall, unless the person concerned makes a written admission of the contravention or non-compliance, cause the matter to be investigated. Now it goes to say that the Commissioner for Human Rights and Administrative Justice, or the Chief Justice, as the case may be, may make or may take such actions as considers appropriate in respect of the results of the investigation or the admission. So, like I said, if they are treating this as purely a matter that has to do with asset declaration, that will come under a purview of SIRAJ, where a complaint has to be made for such a matter to be looked at. Right. However, from where this is coming, the understanding is that they want it to form a body of the evidence that they will need to prosecute this particular case.
So it's going to take a different route.
Exactly.
I appreciate this legal understanding that you bring to it, as always, much of it, so that we all follow, we laymen follow every step of the way. Leonard man.
Leonard Ocansey.
Thank you so much, as always.
Most welcome, Alfred.
For coming through. And Dennis Kwaberi and I'm Esquire there. You're also live here on Ghana Tonight. And this is one that we keep an eye on, because from what we're learning, this particular case, again, has been adjourned, and our colleague, legal affairs correspondent, that is Lord Edward Sari, is going to be following this case every step of the way to give us all the details and updates that we need, so that you can also follow it every step of the way, and how this is also going to be playing out in the court of law. So stay with us here on Ghana Tonight, but this is one that we'll keep an eye on. So the adjourned date, from what we do know, is June 26th at 2 p.m. Between 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., June 26th this case will be called again. But coming up next here on Ghana Tonight, the former Finance Minister, Kenneth Ofori-Atta, may be facing more than just interest from the Office of the Special Prosecutor, as 2 other state institutions are reportedly seeking him in connection with separate investigations, active ones from what we do know right now and how things are playing out. It is emerging that the former Finance Minister, Kenneth Ofori-Atta, is being investigated by other security agencies in the country, apart from the Office of Special Prosecutor. Now, this hint was first given by the Director of Strategy, Research, Communication Division, the Office of Special Prosecutor, Samida Ako, on the Key Point on TV3. He indicated that apart from the Special Prosecutor, who has declared Kenneth Ofori-Atta wanted, and then also now having Interpol list him on the red list on their website, other security agencies in the country have launched separate active investigations into Kenneth Ofori-Atta's dealings during his tenure as Finance Minister. I want us to recall exactly what Samida Ako said on Key Point on Saturday. Take a look.
You do not know why we need Mr. Ofori-Atta. It's not just for purposes of charging. This debate is not about whether we can try an abstention or this debate is about a suspect who has refused to appear before the OSP. And the OSP is enforcing it.
So we are pointing you to another way, another procedure.
So he says they know their job.
If the other way is
they are proceeding as expected.
Every Ghanaian in Ghana will decide that when the law enforcement agency invites them, they will not come, go straight and file it. That's what I told you. There's a reason for why you need to do investigation. There's a reason. And we're saying that we want to do that process. I understand that, yes, you want to know the nitty-gritty, but you are the same people who are accusing us that we are either disclosing too much or we are not giving too much information. I'm saying that, can we exercise some patience and trust the process that it will be done? In the first place, the OSP is the one that came out to say that we are investigating on 5 cases. And we are doing exactly that. It's not also true that other law enforcement agencies are not investigating him. Why do you think that other agencies have not done all that you are saying? Because we are not the only ones investigating Mr. Kenneth Ofori-Atta. The other agencies are also investigating him. It's just because that the OSP had to come out because he had agreed with us on certain terms and he has failed to honor the terms, and we are only enforcing his attendance. We shouldn't reduce this meeting into whether we can try an abstention or not. And I've told you that, other than that, everybody should be able to do that. There's several people, they should just tell the police that, please just file it in court and let it be served on me. I don't need to come to your office and order. And nobody is having any fun in arresting anybody. If anything at all, I just told you that there are about 30 people that very soon the OSP will be placed before when they are under arrest. And yet none of you have heard about it. And they've been granted.
That's Samida Ako there earlier on Key Point. It indicated that other agencies are investigating Kenneth Ofori-Atta, not just the OSP. Now, today, here's what we got to know. A bit more detail on this. The Deputy Attorney General, Dr. Adam Shemsai, speaking to Joy News, indicated this, quote, it is not only the OSP that is investigating the former Finance Minister. IOCO and NIB, that's the Economic and Organized Crime Office, and the National Intelligence Bureau are also investigating him. So it is not only the OSP that is looking for the cooperation of the former Finance Minister. So that then gives a bit more detail to what Samida Ako indicated over the weekend, indicating that other agencies are investigating Kenneth Ofori-Atta as well. If you recall, when the special prosecutor declared Kenneth Ofori-Atta wanted again, or relisted him as a wanted man on its website, they put the possible location, and this is the website of the Office of Special Prosecutor. If you go there, Kenneth Ofori-Atta is one of 5 people who have been declared wanted on the Special Prosecutor's website. You have one, Derek Asumeni. His possible location, we understand, Northern region, other areas, and his crime is that it's been investigated in the corruption-related offenses, including but not limited to corruption, bribery, abuse of public officer, and so on. And then there's one, Anthony Jesse, and then Sadia Al-Hassan. These people, well, they are of interest to the special prosecutor. But this man, talking about Kenneth Ofori-Atta, his is of a serious interest for good reason, because he's former finance minister. And also the 5 issues that has been investigated on are active matters that are of public interest. So the interest in his case is higher, and rightly so. If you look at the possible locations that the special prosecutor says Kenneth Ofori-Atta could be, United States. And we asked the question that time that, yes, for the United States it's a given, because the Mayo Clinic where he is receiving or is reported to be receiving medical treatment is in the United States. So why did the OSP then add the UK, South Africa, Guyana, Hong Kong, Cayman Islands to the possible locations of Kenneth Ofori-Atta? And Cayman Islands, we know, these tax havens and so on. So it points to something. But let's bring in Richard Kumado. He understands the workings of the security architecture, specifically with the National Intelligence Bureau. He's joining us, a former operative of the BNI. Then, Mr. Kumado, appreciate your time. I recall that when this matter came up and the possible locations of Kenneth Ofori-Atta was published by the Special Prosecutor, I asked a question about why expand the scope of his possible locations. Does what the Deputy Attorney General put out today, does it give you some further clarity on why these other countries have been listed as his possible location?
Definitely, yes. And if you remember, during that interview, I stressed the point that there are 2 ways of looking at it. Individuals can commit one particular crime that is involving, and because of the nature of the involving nature of the crime they have committed, almost all the law enforcement agencies or the investigative agencies could be interested in investigating that particular person. Or you might have actually committed specific crimes that borders on the work of YOCO, the NIB or the BNI, the police, Special Prosecutor's Office, and other agencies and departments you might not know of. So when Justice Sai said it this evening, I think they were on the right path. And that is why we'll be saying that let's allow the investigative agencies to do their work. And one of the other reasons why they may expand the location is that they want to make it as broad as enough so that the crime suspect or the person who have come under crime notice wouldn't have escaped through the radar. I would not also be surprised, now that the NIB or the BNI is involved, and YOCO particularly is involved, that they might have other locations that they have not yet disclosed to the general public. So that is where we are as this evening. It's a standard procedure, and it is what is done all over the world, and we have not breached the standard procedure.
But how do you see things playing out? I mean, based on your knowledge, I mean, of how things work, without giving too much detail, and also taking into consideration what the Deputy Attorney General has put out today.
No, when you look at the Interpol platform, predominantly is used by the police, that at all times when they are investigating crime or they are looking for a particular person who committed crime and they cannot find the person, the standard protocol on it was, one of them was the red alert, meaning that all law enforcement agencies to help in the arresting of this particular person who have been declared wanted or have jumped boat. Now, all other agencies who deals with investigations and prosecutions all over the world, you have the FBI, you have the CIA, you have the MI5, MI6, Scotland Yard, and almost all the agencies in the world, together with the private investigators, will also create a database about this particular person. And that is why we say that the risk of being ranked higher as a wanted person or the fugitive is so huge. And that is why we would have loved that our uncle Kenneth Ofori-Atta comes to cooperate with a special prosecutor. But then that didn't happen. What we are seeing now, that the frontiers of the investigation has been opened because of the specific role he played as the finance minister. It means that other protocols and other steps will be taken, whether to try him in absentia or to get close to him, and whether it means that some sophistications and some confiscations will have to be activated, because there might be certain aspects of the prosecution that goes with confiscating proceeds from crime. So that is where we are, and it will be interesting for students of investigations to learn some of these things as it's being played in the public space.
You mentioned the collaboration that we're seeing amongst, from what the Deputy Attorney General did say as well, which confirms what you said almost 2 weeks ago, that, yes, it's expected that the IOCO, BNI, or NIB and OSP would all work together. I mean, but then again, they are all investigating separate issues, are they not? So then,
definitely,
what's the point of convergence? Yes.
Okay, so that is one thing Justice Sai said it today, and I know the media is going to spin it out, not your media house, but some media is going to spin it out and make it a standard norm. No, it is not. What Justice Sai said today is what we call prospective opinion on cases. Because remember, it's not all the cases that the investigative bodies are investigating that came from the Attorney General's department or that came directly from government. So this is the way it works. Two things. One person can be involved in a particular crime, that this crime involves so much that all the other agencies of investigations in Ghana may get involved. Or some other crimes would have been committed on separate grounds. That means that you have to visit or you have to answer questions by all the investigative agencies. Because Justice Sai said that they wouldn't put one crime suspect or somebody who has come at a crime notice to the various departments or agencies. That is a perspective because it depends on the nature of the crime and the manner of commission, means that if you commit a particular crime in a particular way or in a manner, you are likely to be questioned or to be interviewed by all the law enforcement agencies. And that point has to be made so clearly that it does not become a standard convention in this country. Now, Alfred, how it converges that when you go to court, it's no longer the BNI that goes to court or Yoko that goes to court. It is the state that goes to court in some of these cases. And who represents the state is the Attorney General. So there's one thing we do in investigations, working together with a lawyer, that when we go to court, there are some evidence that we determine to be admissible and some not to be admissible. So they work so hard within the lines to ensure that our convergence criteria produces a docket that gives the prosecution team a leverage at court. Because remember, the defense team is going to put a fight. It's going to put up a fight. So that is where the convergence comes in. What Yoko did, what the BNI did, what Special Prosecutor did, what the CID block would do, and what the other agencies that we might not be made note of, they all converge in building up that bucket, which then become the evidence they are going to present in court. And that is the beauty of what they would have been doing respectively in their independent units. But at the point of prosecution, particularly when prosecution is on the line and the person is a high profile, the nature of convergence is done at the point when the Attorney General is ready to go to court. And that is the work of the Attorney General together with the investigators on the ground.
And it's important that you make this point because then that distinction is quite clear. And I did mention as well, this possible prosecutor published the wanted notice on this website of Ofori-Atta. That's the United States of America, the United Kingdom, South Africa, Guyana, Hong Kong, and the Cayman Islands. And if you look at the modus operandi of the IOCO, Economic and Organized Crime Office, it's quite clear what their defined scope of investigation is. Economic crime, Mr. Komodo. And then also, so when you look at Cayman Islands, and what comes to mind is the status of they being a tax haven, right? I mean, they don't have any corporate tax laws. And so you have a lot of multinationals and people who are going there, and because they don't want to pay taxes, you would have a lot of investments there as well. I mean, then again, you look at what possibly the other agencies will be looking at. OSP, we know what they are investigating as well. I mean, looking at all of these possibilities, what could be the point of convergence for all of these, especially because they are working together? 1 minute before we go.
What could also happen is that OSP has triggered the Interpol platform, one of the protocols on the Interpol platform. The BNI and Yoko in particular, working together with the National Crime Agency of the UK, will trigger also protocols, some other protocols not known to the general public, and that may help in their cause. And it is part of the convergence criteria. Alfred, let me also say that in one country, last year or so, somebody has been declared wanted for crime investigations or have come to national security interests in that particular country. Private investigators and state investigators were sent into some of these hideouts, and this person was brought back to this particular country to come and face charges and to answer those questions. So once the investigative bodies begin to work together, collaborating with their international bodies, and they want to bring you down, they have several ways of bringing you down, or they have several ways of unraveling what are the core issues together with the investigations they are doing. Unless something dramatic happens, they have a lot of resources and they have a lot of long hands to be able to fetch you, irrespective of wherever you are.
Mr. Komodo, appreciate your time on this. Thank you so much for joining us. He's a security analyst and also a former operative of the BNI, now National Intelligence Bureau there. Well, the OSP has declared Ken Ofori-Atta wanted, but as we're getting to know now that IOCO is also another agency of interest in the presence and cooperation of Ken Ofori-Atta to what they are investigating, which we don't know. We don't know exactly what IOCO is investigating. We don't know exactly what the National Intelligence Bureau is investigating. For the Office of Special Prosecutor, we do know. IOCO has not declared Ken Ofori-Atta wanted, at least based on the information that we have on their website. If you go to the IOCO website, they have a number of people they've declared wanted. This is the IOCO website, right? These are the wanted people. There are about almost 20 of them. There's Siddhartha, Roy, there's Wisdom, Achuk Oklu, Mariam Ibrahim, all these people, you see them. It's on the IOCO website. This is public information. All these people, IOCO is looking for them. But, you know, we'll see how the coming days will look like. Now that we know that they are also interested in the presence of Kenneth Ofori-Atta, there's one Ismail Hamidu, also known as Alfred Dankwa, and then one Akwesi Ajuman Abebrese, and all these people there. IOCO is looking for these people. But then again, we don't have Ken Ofori-Atta on there as yet, but we'll see how the coming days will look like on it here on Ghana Tonight. Getting to know that the Deputy Attorney General, Dr. Justice Remsa, is talking about IOCO also being interested in the investigation of Ken Ofori-Atta. But coming up next, well, we have more for you after the airing of our documentary, Trapped in War. My colleague, Godwin Asedeba, had to travel to Ukraine to interact with Ghanaians who were promised lucrative jobs, only for them to get there, and they were put on the front line to fight the war of Ukraine and Russia. Some of them have died. Others are living with life-threatening injuries. But some of them have come back to Ghana with harrowing stories. But let's give you a just sneak peek of what we watched or we showed you. If you missed the entire documentary, it's live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook. You can go and play it back. But just take a look at this.
Another day in Ukraine, a place where fear is felt in every corner, where the sound of gunfire is a daily reminder of a war that never seems to end. But for some Ghanaian men, this is not just a battlefield. This is a nightmare they cannot wake up from.
We need help, and at the same time, we have other four-blooders that still, 2 weeks this, we are not being hearing from them.
You can remember that 14 young men left Ghana in 2024, tricked into believing they were coming to Russia for well-paying jobs. Instead, they were sent here to the front lines of one of the deadliest conflicts in the world.
I don't know if this morning, me say I should go next or someone should go next. So our lives are in danger here seriously today. We beg you. It's not easy over here.
Now, few who remain are exhausted, broken, and terrified. I've been speaking to some of these Ghanaian men, and they've been sharing their stories with me. And their stories are nothing short of horrifying. Nothing has changed since. These men who had never held guns before, leaving Ghana, are now forced to supply ammunition to Russian soldiers after barely a month training.
We do surprise bombs and some other things close to the wall front line. On our way going, you can see drones and all that, because this war is all about drones and this rocket and all that stuff. I quite remember when we were going on our way, we see this ambo car with top speed. The person that is leading us trying to, give us a alert that there is a missile BIA chasing, so we have to, try and force ourselves into the bush.
Some are given rifles, pushed into battle with no proper training, just orders to shoot.
My right leg, I had a gunshot. I was in a trend shooting. I just hear, go down, go down. When I was about to go down, I just heard my leg pull. So I thought it was a friend at the back. But when I turned, that friend was down. So I just saw blood. I was not feeling any pain because the bullet didn't enter my bone. All of my teeth, they are all artificial.
Others are tasked with carrying the bodies of fallen soldiers, dragging lifeless corpses across the battlefield. They say the stench of death clings on them, haunting them long after each mission ends.
I'm going to call headline so. I'm going to say from dead bodies. Me is suffering no like interesting me now. You know, the commander and then nobody me about hospitalized here. I'm going to me.
One of them, barely able to stand from injuries, told me he's regularly injected with substances, whatever it takes to keep him moving and to keep him fighting. A very determined young man. He asked me the same question over and over. Will I ever see my family again? This question broke me down. But here's the harshest truth. Some of these men already know they may never make it out alive. They're worried about those who have vanished, men who were once fighting alongside with them, now missing without a trace. Are they dead? Have they been abandoned? No one knows where they are. Back home in Ghana, their families wait for news, any good news at all. They have pleaded with authorities, but the man accused of luring them into this tragedy has disappeared, and so the cycle of fear continues.
If the Russian embassy can give us an official document to prove that he is dead, that's all that the family needs. We can base upon that and then organize a befitting funeral for him.
Well, Emmanuel Bombande is a former Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs. He watched this documentary. He's going to be joining us on Ghana Tonight, right after this quick break, as to what can be done to ensure that other young men and women do not fall victim to this scheme of deceit to the peril of their own lives. So stay with us. We'll be back shortly. Emmanuel Bombande will be joining us after this quick break. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, DSTV channel 279. We're all across the world on 3news.com. Before we went for that break, we were showing you excerpts of that documentary, a chilling detail that Godwin Asedeba brought to us. He traveled to Ukraine to bring us a first-hand idea of what Ghanaians are going through. Ghanaians who are fighting a war that has nothing to do with them, essentially, at the front line, and they are coming face to face with the bullets fought on behalf of Ukraine as they are in war against Russia. Well, take a look at this.
With me, and their stories are nothing short of horrifying. Nothing has changed since. These men who had never held guns before, leaving Ghana, are now forced to supply ammunition to Russian soldiers after barely a month training.
We do surprise bombs and some other things closer to the war front line. On our way going, you can see drones and all that, because this war is all about drones and this rocket and all that stuff. I quite remember when we were going on our way, we see this ambo car with top speed. The person that is leading us trying to, give us alert that there is.
Zemano Bombande is a former Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Ghana. He's joining us via Zoom right now. Bombande, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening to you, and good evening to all your viewers.
You watched the full documentary as we aired it earlier this evening. Quite troubling, to say the least, is it not?
Yes, I saw most of the documentary at the point that I was alerted, and you have described it in better words. It's chilling, it's incredulous, and I could not help but ask myself, and maybe that's the way to start the conversation with you for the time I have. Let me do a hypothesis, a kind of a scenario building. And this hypothesis, as we normally see in Ghana, God forbid, it's just for the purpose of the conversation, but not that anybody would wish it. If Ghana were confronted with a situation of war, and these same young men were asked to be recruited to stand in the front line and fight for the Republic of Ghana, the question I ask myself is, will they have accepted to be recruited and to fight for Ghana? And the more I reflected on my own question, the more I started to find and to soul search what is wrong with our society. There is too much of gullibility. There is a certain mindset that a Ghanaian can only be better off when you leave the shores of Ghana to go elsewhere. And in so doing, there is very little concern about the risk that is involved. Now, let me not make a mistake and generalize this. There are genuine risks that many young, hardworking Ghanaians do take and work hard to improve on their livelihoods, even including supporting their families. I'm not talking about that risk. I'm talking about the type of risk that makes the human person to be so gullible that you are prepared to be sold as a slave under the argument of trying to make ends meet. And so the push factor, which is economic, we cannot underrate it. But looking at your documentary, that cannot be the reason to push young men, very able-bodied young men, to go and fight a war in which it has nothing to do with them, it has nothing to do with their future. And so my second point is, why is it that even as I watched the documentary, I heard some of our foreign service officials from our embassy in Moscow describe to your journalists this risk, which includes the fact that they are signing away their rights, literally, to be recruited and to be trafficked as human beings, and even the documents they sign, they don't understand, and should they even die and the benefits were to be paid, it will not be paid to them, but to the agents that recruited them. So the question I asked is, why couldn't our foreign ministry have taken the proactive steps to educate the people of Ghana about what it means to be so gullible to allow yourself to be recruited to fight in this Russia-Ukraine war? Why didn't that happen? And my good brother, the only information Ghanaians had about the Russia-Ukraine war and how it was repeated every day was how it was the war that deteriorated or was the reason for the downturn of our economy and nothing else. We all watched and we repeated that chorus every day, but nobody took the steps to conscientize, to educate. So briefly, what am I saying? The individual Ghanaian is culpable, is gullible. The official institutions of our governance have also failed these young men. There is a huge gap between our governance institutions and how our people must be carried along to see their governments exercising that obligation to protect them and to be in the forefront of making sure that their interest is not abused. Cumulatively, you put this all together and you begin to make meaning of this chilling documentary that you have heard this evening.
And you are so right about this, that the only time we talked a lot more about this Russia-Ukraine war was how it impacted on the economy over the years. But then again, watching this documentary,
yes,
you realize it's closer to home than we thought, that we have citizens, Ghanaian citizens on the front line, not fighting COVID, but fighting a war that has nothing to do with them.
Yeah, and keep in mind, my good brother, let's even imagine that they fought that war and then they did not die and they were paid for their services. They will not be normal human beings again. Because I saw one of them in the interview say that he had to kill a lot of people because if you don't kill, you'll be killed. That is the violation of our humanity at the psychological dimension that people do not talk a lot about. You cannot go and kill so many human beings and just simply walk away and life continues to be normal. But let me add on here that in the framework of our international relationships, in our geopolitics, in the current very complex geopolitical landscape that the world is confronted with, every country has the obligation to protect its citizens from falling in harm's way. I'm sure you have heard this evening, just as an example, that the Secretary of Defense of the United States is asking non-essential family dependents all across the Middle East to leave because their assessment is that the tensions are becoming unbearable. Now, that's an example of how a country led by a government elected by its people is so aware of the dangers that their citizens can fall into that they take proactive steps to protect them. And so you see that at the level of our governance, there was a huge gap. Our people are not aware, they are not informed, they are not educated about the complex geopolitical landscape that we find ourselves. And so they are driven, excuse my language, like sheep to the slaughter's house. But let me then also take this minute to appreciate your work, and for that matter, media general. Because if you do not bring this, it will not sink home that this is the enormity of our compatriots in terms of what they've gone through and what they are going through. And to that extent, the question then should be asked, where is our general Ghanaian media, including the state media, that should be in the forefront of informing, educating, and engaging? Though I don't want to limit it to what I will call our state media. I want to hold accountable the agencies of government that should provide the means, including the type of orientation, education, conscientization, and awareness for our people not to fall in this danger. It is heartbreaking. It is sad. And maybe one thing we can say is this, and maybe I'll do that as my wrap-up unless you have another question.
Right.
Your documentary is compelling. That our only way is to work hard collectively as a people to make our economy strong so that the well-being of every Ghanaian is taken care of. But for that to happen, it requires a governance system in which we are prepared to all contribute, but with the knowledge that in building a Ghanaian democracy, there must be accountability. Look at how we are defending the indefensible when the law enforcement agencies are trying to hold certain individuals accountable for their stewardship. But we think it is only limited to individuals by their name. We forget that when the country called Ghana is not able to hold accountable officials who mismanage the resources of this country, Ghana will continue to sink into poverty. And the more we sink into poverty, the more we see the type of documentary you have made, because young people who are gullible would leave. But the more we insist on a leadership that understands that accountability is part of the building of a democracy that endures to the benefit of the people through economic emancipation, developmental emancipation, rights and freedoms, then these young people will not need to go to Russia or Ukraine to fight a war that they do not even understand what it means at all for their lives. And this for me has a wider dimension, therefore, to suggest that it must be understood from a holistic and a comprehensive perspective, and that there is an interlocking phase from one to the other and to the other. If we don't want a push factor that sends our young people to die, as we are seeing in the documentary, it begins from home. It begins from a collective effort. It begins from integrity, accountability, and building a democracy that has a good leadership, that's participatory, and that is inclusive. Then we can prevent this from happening in the future. And maybe let your documentary begin the conversation that we can work in such a way that our children and their children will not be recruited to go to these types of wars.
And you have said it all and summed it all in the right words. And that clarion call that you make in the end is a very, very important one. So, Bombande, I do appreciate your time and your recommendations on this. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, and I wish you good evening, sir.
Have a good night, too. Emmanuel Bombande is a former Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister. The full complement of the documentary you will find on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and also on YouTube. Godwin Asideba, congratulations on this one, as you heard Emmanuel Bombande talk about there. There's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. Join the New Day team tomorrow morning. Also on Sunrise 3FM 92.7. Join the team 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. I am Alfred Ocansey. Have a good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage.